I'm Bill. I'm an addict. Hey, Brian. Yeah, Tony and I kind of discussed how we wanted to do this. And since Tony is the PI and outreach guy, rather than have conflicting shares here, I'm going to talk about a little bit about literature and how I got involved in the Seeking Traditional Solutions group, and also in how we came to the decision to print our own literature. I believe it was back in 2010 or maybe 2009. My area, which is the greater oh, by the way, I wanted to thank everybody who's been participating today. I've been on since 9 o'clock. I've had to leave a couple times for a little bit, but it's been fabulous. Anyway, I'm in the greater San Jose area it's in the Bay Area, Northern California. And some people at our area asked me, and as I say, 2009, I guess, maybe 2010, they said, Bill, have you ever heard of the USFA? And I was like, no. And they said, well, they're doing something in Wichita, Kansas. Why don't you look into it? And I'm thinking to myself, why? You know, I just wasn't particularly interested. But since the economy was lousy and I wasn't working real hard, I thought, okay, I'll get involved in it. So I did. And shortly thereafter, and I wasn't really at that time all excited about Narcotics Anonymous. I'd been in a couple service positions, but I wasn't feeling a lot of love in greater San Jose. Anyway, so Wichita was taking place, and I reached out to some of the people, and they said that they were going to have one in Tulsa. They were going to have an event in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so I made reservations, and I flew into Tulsa. I'd never been to Tulsa. No reason to ever go to Tulsa. But anyway, I ended up in Tulsa, and I walked, I think it was at the Holiday Inn, and I walked in, and Gary Van Every was there. And he goes, San Jose is in the house. And he came up and he gave me a hug. And I don't want to start crying here.
Go ahead. It's okay to cry.
Yeah. But my whole outlook changed. Okay. In other words, San Jose is a huge area. I mean, we have like 70 meetings. We provide most of the money for the Northern California region. You know, it's got Silicon Valley in it. But it's really cliquey. Okay. In other words, if you don't go to this meeting, you know, you're really not in. You know, and anyway, I was amazed. And I got to hear about the guy. In fact, I just got the audio. His name was Rick. He started CANA, or one of the guys who started CANA in Canada. I heard from Sam B about how they started the China region, and how he ended up, how Anthony flew in from the Philippines looking for some Chinese addicts, and there weren't any. It was one meeting in Shanghai, and it was all expatriates. And Anthony said, well, you guys have to be at the World Service Conference. And boom, Sam's now the RD of the China region, and he's going to the World Service Conference. That's, I mean, so, but at that time, Dale S. From Tennessee handed out a book. Okay, it was I think it was the second edition, book 1. And he handed them out as souvenirs to everybody, had my name on it. And anyway, I came back here, and I'm involved in H&I, and I went to H&I, and I showed it to the H&I chair, he's in San Jose still. He's got, I think, 38 years. And of course, back then he had 28 years. But anyway, he went, "Wow, Bill. Wow." He says, "That's the basic text?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "How much would they cost?" And I said, "I have no idea." And he said, "Well, find out." So I did. I found out. They were going to cost like $3 a piece, I think. And the next H&I meeting, I said, "Hey, I found out, this little book here, this little book, $3 a piece." And he's like, $3 instead of 9? We can buy 3 times as many to take into the jails and stuff. And I went, "Okay, Steve, whatever, and so he goes to all the people in H&I, and he says, "Give Bill money, donate to Bill money." And somebody raised their hand and said, "Hey, we're a subcommittee of area. You really need to ask area." And Steve says, "Okay." So the next area, I went with Steve. Steve took the little book, got up in front, said, "I make a motion that we print these, we allow H&I to print these." And it passed. Okay, now I have to tell you, it passed 22 yes, 17 no, and 10 abstentions. Okay. So right then, Steve goes, "Okay, give Bill more money." And everybody's giving me more money. So I went out and I ended up buying 100 books. Well, needless to say, nobody knew what the FIPT was. Nobody was paying any attention, because what's our primary purpose, right? Is to carry the message. So the next area, somebody brought up the fact, they said, "Hey, you know what? We might be stepping out of line here. Our area might get in trouble." And so they had a discussion about that. The next month, somebody who knew Robert's rules better than the area chair came up and said, "Hey, I make a motion to rescind the motion from 2 months prior because it didn't pass." And everybody was like, "What do you mean it didn't pass?" It was 22 yes, 17 no, and 10 abstentions. And they said, "Yes, that's 22 out of a total of 50 votes." Okay, and it has to be 50 plus 1. Once again, you'd have to do the math, but it was 22, 17, and 10, whatever that total is. Anyway, so then they came up to me and they go, "Bill, where are the books?" And I said, "Why do you want to know?" And they said, "Because we want you to give us the books to burn them." And I remember from some history when I was going to school about book burnings and stuff, and that just didn't sound right to me. So anyway, I told them, "No, well, ever since that time, it just seemed our group had the right to print." Okay, and even based on the FIPT, our group had a right to print. And so I got really involved in printing all sorts of different NA literature and giving it away. Because once again, a book for $1 is a lot different than a book for $13. And when I go down to a homeless shelter and give them 10 books, it costs me $10. It doesn't cost me $120. So anyway, it's just been kind of interesting. And even this was only I became the H&I chair on 3 different occasions, of course, and always was looking for ways in which possibly we could increase getting literature. Because when I go to the jails, I go over, I've been doing a meeting at the reentry center, which is all parolees. Anybody who gets out of prison comes to Santa Clara County, they have to go to the reentry center. And So the people there who run the main jail in Elmwood and stuff, they say, Bill, can you get us any books? And I go, well, as the H&I chair, I have to go to area, and I have to ask area if they'll I'll make a motion for $550 to get a box of books, case of books. And I do. In an area, somebody raises their hand and say, isn't that a county agency, the sheriff's department? I go, yeah. And they go, they can buy the books. And I'm like, of course they can, but they won't. You know, and so Alcoholics Anonymous, needless to say, they call their H&I, and they come over with 10 boxes of books of all sorts of different kinds and give them to them. And for me, I was always, as the H&I chair, felt kind of like second fiddle, you know? In other words, there wasn't much I could do. And so I brought up at area, somebody, I said, why don't we get a working group together and see whether or not it would be possible for us to do a better job. And it was kind of interesting. We started a work group. We had some meetings. And we came to the conclusion that, you know what, some of the large groups in Greater San Jose could take in an H&I meeting themselves. And we took it to area, and somebody brought up, you'll never believe it, of course. They said the only reason Bill wants to do that is because then groups can print their own literature. And that was, of course, the last work group meeting we had. So for me, a lot of the fourth tradition is just really, 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 really important. In other words, our groups are basically giving away, to me, this is my opinion, okay? I've been to 5 World Service Conferences, okay? They got 100 and whatever number of people there making decisions that filter down from there to the region, to the areas, to the groups. And the GSRs are looking for direction, okay? They don't go to their groups. They ask their RCM to go to region and find out information. It's like, you want to find out anything? Call NA World Service. They'll give you the answer, okay? And their answer isn't to give something a try, okay? Give it a shot. You know, see how it works. If it doesn't work, that's okay. You know, then that's how I always learned. Everything I've learned is because of the fact I made a mistake, okay? Very rarely did I ever learn because of the fact things were working really well for me. So anyway, I'm just, I'm supportive of this was supposed to be about ARNA, and I wanted to just say that the autonomous region is just an information, okay? In other words, it's going to leave the group, allow the groups to decide what the groups want to do. And for me, I don't know how you guys were, okay? All I remember is my dad telling me, you know, when I was 12, hey, Willie, I want you to come home at 8 o'clock, and I'd come home at 9. And, you know, and then he'd smack the hell out of me, and he'd say, look, I got to teach you. You know, well, they ended up sending me away to military school. That didn't work. I mean, I'm not real good. I always have to learn on my own, okay? I'll take advice, and if it's not, you know, like, Bill, don't jump out of that building without a parachute on or something. That makes sense to me. Okay, yeah, I get that, yeah. But it seems like a lot of the things I learn on my own. And I think that's the way we're supposed to learn, okay? As I say, I find I've done H&I work with Jason. I just picked up a guy that his name's Terry Burton. He was at the end of a 23-year sentence at San Quentin. And I just took him over to out to get some clothes and stuff yesterday and give him a phone. And he and I were talking about it, that a lot of these things end up being miraculous, primarily because of the fact you give it a shot. I'll turn it over to Tony here, but I wanted to mention one final thing. We were talking about, Muhammad was talking about a higher power, and religion and stuff. And the first time I got in trouble, which was back in 1982, my attorney told me, he said, Bill, you really need to change your life. And being a good kid, you know, I came from a pretty good household. I became a member of a church, okay? The reason I became a member of a church is I needed letters. My attorney said, Bill, you're going to need a lot of good letters, okay? And I said, letters from whom? And he goes, the Pope, Bill, okay? The mayor. You're going to need a lot of good letters. You're looking at 12 years state prison. Well, I won't bore you with everything, but I became a member of the church. I became a member of the choir. I sang in the choir. I went to choir practice every Wednesday. In the end, 2 years down the road, of course, I ended up getting one letter. I asked everybody, but everybody declined to write me a letter, other than the pastor of the church. Well, I got clean, and I don't know, I maybe had 2 or 3 years clean, and I was really kind of debating whether or not this was something I wanted to really do, or did I want to go back to my old lifestyle. And I woke up one Sunday morning, and the thought popped into my head, why didn't I go to church? Could have knocked me over with a feather, the reason being I don't go to church. But anyway, I got up, got dressed, and I went. And I was walking into the church, and there was a lady at the door with these robes on, and of course I didn't want to meet her. So I'm trying to sneak by her, and she looked up and she goes, good morning. You know, has this big grin on her face, welcoming. And me, I'm kind of concerned about the roof caving in as soon as I walk in, you know, or lightning striking me. But she goes, are you a visitor to our church? And I said, no, I'm a member here. And she goes, really? I've never seen you here before. I said, well, it's been a while. And she goes, well, who was the pastor last time you were here? And I said, Glenn Fuller. The reason I remembered his name is he's the only guy who wrote a letter for me. And she said, Glenn Fuller, wow, he'll be here today for the first time since he retired. And he'd been retired 22 years, okay? So to me, when they sit there and they say, I read this Paths of Recovery, and it says recovery is based on divine intervention. And I have to say for myself, that's absolutely true. I wasn't planning on staying. The only reason I came to Narcotics Anonymous was everybody that I'd been in prison with. That's where they went, you know, when they were trying to get off parole or whatever. And so that's where the people I knew were. And amazingly, a lot of those people have died. A lot of people have gone back out. And for some reason, I've been able to stay. So anyway, knock him dead, Tony.